Time magazine called him the unsung hero behind the internet. CNN called him a father of the internet. President Bill Clinton called him one of the great minds of the information age. He has been voted history's greatest scientist of African descent. He is Philip Emeagwali. He's coming to Trinidad and Tobago to launch the 2008 Kwame Ture Lecture Series on Sunday, June 8th at the JFK Auditorium, St. Augustine, 5 p.m. The Emancipation Support Committee invites you to come and hear this inspirational mind address the theme, Crossing New Frontiers to Conquer Today's Challenges. This lecture is one you cannot afford to miss. Admission is free, so be there on Sunday, June 8th, 5 p.m. at the JFK Auditorium, St. Augustine.
In supercomputing, I possess the secret sauce or the new knowledge that enabled me to invent the world's fastest computer. In computational physics, a necessary condition for solving a grand challenge problem that is computation intensive is that I must correctly visualize how to massively parallel process that problem and process it as a million smaller problems and process it across as many tightly coupled processors. A second condition for inventing the world's fastest supercomputer is that I must correctly visualize how to send and receive each problem across a new internet that is a new global network of 65,536 central processing units. A third condition for inventing the world's fastest supercomputer is that I must correctly visualize how to parallel process all those problems and how to send and receive each problem to a processor and how to compute with a one-to-one correspondence that maintains nearest neighbor problem to processor mapping. A fourth condition for inventing the world's fastest supercomputer is that I must correctly visualize how to maintain the connectivity of 65,536 problems and codes on as many identical memory units and on as many identical central processing units that were each in close proximity to its 16 nearest neighboring central processing units or tightly coupled processors that shared nothing. Most importantly, I must understand that my invention of the parallel supercomputer was a paradigm shift. Parallel processing was a quest for a new direction in the world of the supercomputer and the internet. My quest for a new direction led to my experimental discovery of how and why parallel processing across a new global network of 65,536 processors or across a new internet reduced 65,536 days or 180 years of time to solution on only one processor that is not a member of an ensemble of processors to just 1 day of time to solution across a new internet that is a new global network of 65,536 commodity off-the-shelf processors. Back in 1989, I was in major US newspapers for my contributions to the development of the supercomputer. I was described as the Nigerian supercomputer genius that discovered that parallel processing makes computers faster. That supercomputer genius resided in my ability to visualize my new internet as having 16 sets of email pathways that each contained 2 raised to power 16 paths. That supercomputer genius was in my visualizing and associating a unique color to each set of email pathways. those 16 colors enabled me to identify both on my storyboard and on my blackboard each member of my 16 sets of 65,536 parts. That supercomputer genius was in my visualizing those 16 sets as perpendicular pathways that were orthogonal to each other and that were pointing to 16 mutually perpendicular directions in 16-dimensional hyperspace. Most vector processing supercomputer scientists work as part of a multidisciplinary team of up to 1,000 mathematicians, physicists, and computer scientists. For that reason, the modern supercomputer scientists don't have to know nearly everything about the supercomputer. In contrast, the supercomputer scientists of the mid-1940s knew nearly everything about the supercomputer of that era. As a lone supercomputer scientist who came of age in 1974, my grand challenge was to figure out how to harness my ensemble of 64 binary thousand tightly coupled processors that shared nothing. That is, each processor operated its own operating system, and each processor had its own dedicated memory. My grand challenge was to figure out the intricate one-binary million pathways of the email messages that I was sending to and receiving from my 16-bit long email addresses. My grand challenge was to visualize my new internet not simply as a new global network of processors that was mathematically embedded within the 16th dimensional hyperspace, but also as 65,536 tightly coupled processors that were connected to each other as one cohesive unit that is both a new supercomputer and a new internet de facto. That new internet that is a new supercomputer is a network of networks that was 16 networks deep, but yet in 3-dimensional physical space and in 16-dimensional mathematical space. That is, my grand challenge was to know a priori and know from my theoretical deductions that my internet connections were along 16 directions that were perpendicular to each other and that were in my theorized 16-dimensional hyperspace. My grand challenge was to discover that my new ensemble of processors defined a new internet. I discovered practical parallel processing as the vital technology that must underpin every supercomputer, and I discovered it before I could harness that new global network of processors as a new internet. As its first programmer, I had to understand my new internet as a network of networks that is 16 networks deep and thoroughly understand that invention before I could take the next step of programming the new internet to send and receive my emailed grand challenge codes and receive them at 2 raised to power 16 or 64 binary thousand processors. Each of those processors had its unique 16-bit long binary identification number that jointly served as its unique email address.
insightful and brilliant lecture.